Subscribe to Storylab. Now let's begin this one. The lake house had been in Nathan Irwin's family for 3 generations. Perched on the edge of Mirror Lake in upstate New York, its weathered cedar shingles and wraparound porch held memories of summer barbecues, 4th of July fireworks, and his late wife Andrea's laughter echoing across the water. Now, at 62, Nathan stood on that same porch, watching his only son Marcos practice his wedding vows with his fiancée Geneva Mejia by the dock. "I promise to cherish you," Marcos said, his voice carrying across the lawn. Geneva smiled, her dark hair catching the afternoon sun. They looked perfect together, a young couple in love, ready to start their future. Nathan had built his wealth the hard way. After Andrea died of cancer 8 years ago, he'd thrown himself into expanding his commercial real estate portfolio. He owned 12 properties across 3 states, and his company, Irwin Holdings, was valued at $43 million. But the money had never been the point. Everything he built was for Marcos, his only child, the boy Andrea had loved more than life itself. "Dad!" Marcos jogged up to the porch, Geneva trailing behind. At 28, Marcos had his mother's green eyes and Nathan's strong jawline. "Geneva and I were thinking, what if we moved the ceremony to the south lawn? The view of the lake would be incredible in the photos." Nathan clapped his son on the shoulder. "Whatever makes you two happy. This is your day." Geneva kissed Nathan's cheek. "Thank you for everything, Nathan. The Grandview Hotel, the catering, all of it. You've been so generous." "Your family now," Nathan said warmly. He met Geneva only 9 months ago when Marcos brought her home for Thanksgiving, but she'd seemed sweet, attentive, and genuinely in love with his son. She worked as a marketing consultant, she'd said, though she'd been between contracts lately. What Nathan didn't know was that Geneva Mejia had never worked in marketing. Her real expertise was identifying wealthy, lonely men with sons desperate for approval. And Marcos, struggling actor turned trust fund disappointment, had been the perfect mark. That evening, Nathan sat in his study reviewing the final wedding expenses. The Grandview Hotel outside Albany had cost him $80,000 for the venue, another $40,000 for catering, $15,000 for the band. The ring alone was $35,000. He signed a check without hesitation. Andrea would have wanted Marcos to have the perfect wedding. His phone buzzed. Raymond McLean, his oldest friend and business partner. "You sitting down for this invoice massacre?" Raymond asked. "Just finished. You coming up Thursday?" "Wouldn't miss it. Someone's got to make sure you don't cry during the vows." Nathan laughed. "I make no promises." He paused. "Ray, do you like Geneva?" "Do you not?" "I do. I think I do. There's just—" Nathan couldn't articulate it. Something about the way Geneva watched him sometimes, calculating, as if measuring his worth. "Never mind. Cold feet on behalf of my son. He's a grown man, Nate. Let him make his own choices." After hanging up, Nathan walked to Andrea's photo on the mantel. "I hope I'm doing right by him," he whispered to her frozen smile. "I hope you'd approve." The wedding week arrived with unseasonable warmth for October. The Grandview Hotel sprawled across manicured grounds, its colonial architecture and mountain backdrop making it a premium wedding destination. Nathan checked in Tuesday afternoon, securing the presidential suite. Marcos and Geneva took the bridal suite 2 floors down. Mr. Irwin, the front desk clerk, a young man named Michael Jennings, handed Nathan his key cards. "We're honored to host your son's wedding. If you need anything at all, just call down." The next 2 days blurred into rehearsal dinners and family arrivals. Nathan's sister drove up from Connecticut. Raymond arrived with his wife. Geneva's family, her mother Felicia Foster and her sister Leslie O'Connell, checked in Thursday evening. Nathan found Leslie interesting. Mid-30s, sharp-eyed, she worked in finance, Geneva said. But when Nathan mentioned specific firms, Leslie deflected quickly. Another inconsistency he couldn't quite pin down. Friday night, the rehearsal dinner filled the hotel's grand ballroom. Nathan stood to give a toast, his throat tight with emotion. 28 years ago, Andrea and I welcomed Marcos into the world, he began. She made me promise that I'd always put him first, always protect him, always give him the tools to build a good life. He raised his glass toward Marcos and Geneva. Son, your mother would be so proud of the man you become. Geneva, welcome to our family. May you both find the same love and happiness Andrea and I shared. The applause was thunderous. Geneva dabbed her eyes. Marcos embraced his father. What Nathan couldn't see from his position at the head table was Leslie whispering to Geneva, "He's completely hooked. Tomorrow we close." The wedding day dawned clear and crisp. Nathan helped Marcos with his cufflinks in the groom's suite, his hands shaking slightly. "You okay, Dad?" Marcos asked. "Just thinking about your mom. She should be here." Marcos's expression flickered. Guilt? Annoyance? Before settling into appropriate sadness. "I know. I miss her too." The ceremony was flawless. Geneva floated down the aisle in an imported Italian gown Nathan had paid for. The vows were heartfelt. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Nathan felt tears on his cheeks. His boy was married. His boy was starting his life. The reception swirled with champagne and dancing. Nathan made the rounds, greeting guests, accepting congratulations. Around 11, exhausted and emotionally drained, he headed to his suite on the 4th floor. "Dad, wait." Marcos caught him at the elevator. "Geneva, and I wanted to thank you again. This whole week, you made it magical." Nathan hugged his son. "You deserve it. Both of you. Now go enjoy your bride." In his suite, Nathan kicked off his shoes and loosened his tie. The room was exactly as he'd left it that morning. Bed made, his belongings on the dresser, his briefcase by the desk. He changed into comfortable clothes, poured himself a whiskey, and sat by the window watching the stars. At 2 a.m., he finally climbed into bed. Tomorrow, Marcos and Geneva would fly to Bali for 2 weeks. Then they'd move into the brownstone Nathan had bought them in Brooklyn. A fresh start. A new chapter. Nathan fell asleep smiling, unaware that 3 floors below, in a room registered under a false name, his son and new daughter-in-law were celebrating for entirely different reasons. Saturday morning, Nathan woke to sun streaming through the curtains. His head felt thick. He drunk more whiskey than he'd intended. He checked his phone. 9:47 a.m. Marcos and Geneva's flight to JFK was at 2 p.m. He should say goodbye. After showering, Nathan reached for his wallet to grab a tip for housekeeping. It wasn't on the dresser. Not in his jacket pockets, either. He checked his pants from last night, his briefcase under the bed. Nothing. "Damn it," he muttered. He must have dropped it during the reception. His credit cards, license, $3,000 in cash, everything was in that wallet. He called down to the front desk. Michael Jennings answered. "Mr. Irwin, good morning. How can I help? I seem to have misplaced my wallet. Probably at the reception last night. Has anyone turned one in?" A pause. "Let me check lost and found." "No, sir. Nothing yet. But I'll alert our staff to keep an eye out." "What does it look like?" Nathan described the brown leather billfold. "I really need to find it before I check out." "Of course. Mr. Irwin, could you come down to the front desk? There's something I should discuss with you. In person." Something in Michael's tone made Nathan's stomach tighten. "I'll be right down." The lobby was quiet on Saturday morning, most guests sleeping off the previous night's festivities. Michael stood behind the marble front desk, his young face troubled. When he saw Nathan, he glanced around nervously. "Mr. Irwin," he said quietly, "your wallet is here. I have it in the back office." Relief flooded through Nathan. "Thank God. Thank you. But sir, before I return it." Michael looked genuinely distressed. "I need to show you something, and I need you to promise you won't call the police." Nathan's relief curdled. "What are you talking about?" Michael gestured toward the back office. "Please, come with me." The security office was small, dominated by a bank of monitors showing various hotel corridors and public spaces. Michael closed the door and pulled up a chair for Nathan. "Last night, around 11:30, your wallet was found on the 4th floor hallway," Michael began. "The housekeeper who found it turned it in immediately. But," he pulled up footage on the main monitor. "Sir, your son booked a second room last night. Room 427, right next to yours. The reservation was made under a different name." Nathan's mouth went dry. "What? Please, just watch." Michael's hands trembled as he queued up the footage. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. The video showed the hallway outside Nathan's suite. The door opened, and Marcos stepped out, looking both ways down the corridor. He was followed by Geneva, still in her wedding dress, and then Leslie. They moved quickly to the room next door, 427. Marcos swiped a key card, and they disappeared inside. Why would that? Nathan started, but Michael held up a hand. There's more. This is from inside your room. Nathan's blood froze. Inside my room? How? Your son had a second key to your suite. He requested it Thursday when he checked in, said you'd asked him to grab something for you if you were out. We didn't think anything of it. The screen shifted to footage from a hidden camera. Standard security in the premium suites, Michael explained, in case of theft disputes. The timestamp read 12:03 a.m. Nathan watched in horror as his suite door opened. Marcos entered first, followed by Geneva and Leslie. His son went straight to the desk, pulling out Nathan's briefcase. Geneva rifled through the dresser. Leslie photographed documents with her phone. Okay, the will and trust documents are here, Marcos said on the video. His voice was clear, nothing like the loving tone he'd used hours earlier. Leslie, how long before you can forge the amendments? Leslie barely looked up for photographing. 72 hours. I'll need samples of his signature, but you've been collecting those for months. Geneva emerged from the bathroom, holding Nathan's medication bottles. Perfect. I've got his prescriptions. The Ambien will be easy to increase without him noticing. Nathan felt like he couldn't breathe. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. On screen, Marcos sat on Nathan's bed, loosening his tie. Phase 1 complete. The wedding drained another $150,000 from his accounts. Phase 2 starts next week. Are you sure he'll agree to the power of attorney? Geneva asked, sitting beside her new husband. He'll agree to anything I ask, Marcos said coldly. He's desperate for my approval. Has been since Mom died. The guilt makes him pathetic. Geneva laughed, and the sound made Nathan's skin crawl. And once we have power of attorney, Leslie looked up from the documents. Then we systematically drain his accounts, mortgage his properties, and by the time anyone realizes what's happened, we'll be in the Caymans with $40 million. What about when he figures it out? Geneva asked. Marcos shrugged. By then, we'll have him declared mentally incompetent. The Ambien overdoses will show a pattern of confusion and poor judgment. His own doctor will testify he shouldn't be handling his affairs. And if he fights, Marcos' smile turned cruel. We have enough documentation to suggest his mental decline started months ago. Who's a judge going to believe? A confused old man or his concerned son and daughter-in-law? Nathan gripped the arms of his chair, his knuckles white. The footage continued. They spent 20 minutes in his room, photographing everything, bank statements, property deeds, his passport, even photos of his late wife. Finally, Marcos checked his watch. We should get back to our room. Don't want anyone getting suspicious. Geneva paused at the door. Your father's toast tonight, about protecting you, giving you tools for a good life. She laughed. That was rich. He made it easy, Marcos replied. Mom's death broke him. He's been trying to fill the void ever since. All I had to do was play the grieving son who needed guidance, and he threw money at every problem I invented. They left. The screen went dark. Michael stopped the playback. His face was pale. Mr. Irwin, I'm sorry. I didn't want to show you, but you needed to know. Nathan sat in stunned silence. His mind reeled. Marcos, his son, the boy he'd raised, the child Andrea had died protecting, was planning to destroy him. Geneva wasn't a loving daughter-in-law. She was a con artist. And Leslie, in finance, was actually a forger. The wedding, the brownstone, the constant need for money over the years. It had all been a setup. How long had this been planned? Months? Years? Why didn't you call the police? Nathan finally asked, his voice hoarse. Michael looked miserable, because technically, your son had permission to be in your room. The key card was legally obtained. And the conversation, without concrete action, it's just talk. A good lawyer would shred this in court. They'd claim it was a joke, taken out of context. But you promised I wouldn't call the police, Nathan said slowly. Why? Because, Michael met his eyes, I thought you might want to handle this differently. My uncle was scammed by his own daughter. Lost everything. The courts barely helped. Sometimes, Mr. Irwin, justice has to be personal. Nathan stood, his legs unsteady. I need a copy of that footage. Already made you one. Michael handed him a flash drive. And sir, the room next door, 427, it's booked under the name Wilson. They paid cash for 3 nights. Whatever they're doing in there, they're not done yet. Nathan took the flash drive with shaking hands. His entire world had shattered in 15 minutes. The son he'd loved unconditionally was a stranger. The grief he'd shared with Marcos over Andrea's death had been manipulated, weaponized. But as the shock began to fade, something else emerged. Something cold and sharp. If Marcos wanted to play a long game, Nathan would show him what a real strategist looked like. If they thought he was a pathetic old man consumed by grief, he'd use that against them. They wanted his $43 million? They'd have to pry it from his cold, dead hands. And Nathan Irwin had no intention of dying. Raymond McLean answered on the second ring. Nate, you sound terrible. What's wrong? Ray, I need you to come back to the hotel. Now, and bring your lawyer. What happened? Nathan looked at the flash drive in his hand. I just discovered my son is trying to rob me blind, and I'm going to need help burying him. The game, Nathan realized, had only just begun, and this time, he was playing to win. By noon, Raymond sat in Nathan's suite, watching the security footage for the 3rd time. His face had gone from shock to fury to cold calculation. Jesus Christ, Nate. Your own son. I need to think clearly, Nathan said. He'd spent the last hour pacing, rage and heartbreak warring inside him. They expect me to hand over power of attorney next week. Marcos called Tuesday and said he wanted to help manage the estate since I was getting older. Raymond's jaw clenched. And you were going to agree. I was proud he wanted to be involved. Nathan's laugh was bitter. What an idiot. You're not an idiot. You're a father who trusted his son. Raymond rewound the footage to Marcos's face. But this bastard? He's no son of mine if I were you. Nathan's phone buzzed. A text from Marcos. Dad, heading to airport. Thanks again for everything. Love you. The casual cruelty of it, texting love you while planning to rob him, made Nathan's hands shake. Don't respond yet, Raymond advised. We need a strategy. My lawyer's on her way. Sonia English, she specializes in fraud cases. Will she take this to the police? Not if you don't want her to. Raymond studied Nathan carefully. What are you thinking? Nathan looked at Andrea's photo on his phone, her smile radiant. She'd made him promise to protect Marcos, but she'd never imagined this betrayal. I'm thinking, Nathan said slowly, that if they want to play a con, I'll give them a con. But they won't see the ending coming. Sonia English arrived at 1 p.m., a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s carrying a leather briefcase. She watched the footage once, made notes, then turned to Nathan. This is gold for a civil case, but criminally? Michael's right. Until they act on these plans, it's conspiracy at best. Hard to prosecute. I don't want prosecution, Nathan said. I want revenge. Sonia's eyebrow raised. I'm a lawyer, Mr. Irwin. I can't advise on illegal activities. Then don't advise. Just listen. Nathan pulled out his laptop, accessing his bank accounts. They think I'm a grieving widower who'll sign anything. So I'll play that role. But every dollar they think they're stealing, I'll make sure it destroys them. Raymond leaned forward. What are you proposing? They want power of attorney? I'll get it to them. But first, I'm going to restructure everything. Create a trap they can't resist. And when they spring it, Nathan's smile was cold. They'll lose everything. Their freedom, their money, their future. Sonia closed her briefcase. Mr. Irwin, if you're planning what I think you're planning, I need plausible deniability. Then leave. But before you go, how would someone legally set up a series of trusts that appear valuable but are actually worthless? Asking hypothetically. Sonia paused at the door. Hypothetically? Shell companies. Offshore accounts that exist only on paper. Property deeds that seem legitimate but have hidden liens. All perfectly legal to set up. What you do with them after? She shrugged. That's not my concern. After she left, Raymond poured them both whiskey. Nate, I've known you 30 years. I've never seen you like this. They took my son from me, Ray. Andrea's boy. They turned him into that. Nathan gestured at the frozen screen, showing Marcos rifling through his briefcase. I can't get Marcos back, but I can make damn sure they pay for what they've done. How long do we have? They land in Bali tonight. 2 weeks honeymoon. That gives me 14 days to build the perfect trap. Nathan pulled out a notepad, his mind already racing. First, I need to know everything about Geneva Mejia and Leslie O'Connell. Real backgrounds, not the lies they told me. Raymond nodded. I know a private investigator. Discreet, thorough, good. Second, I need to create the illusion that I'm getting worse. More confused, more dependent on Marcos. They mentioned increasing my Ambien. I'll pretend it's working. That's dangerous, Nate. If they're actually drugging you, I'll switch the pills. Take placebos instead. But I'll act disoriented, forgetful. Make them confident. Nathan's pen moved faster. Third, I'll set up the shell companies Sonia mentioned. Make them look incredibly valuable. Real estate holdings in the Caymans, a tech startup in Singapore, a mining operation in Montana. All smoke and mirrors. And when they take power of attorney and try to access these holdings. Nathan's smile was predatory. That's when the trap springs. Because these companies won't just be worthless. They'll be criminal. Money laundering fronts, tax evasion schemes, fraud operations. And when Marcos and Geneva try to claim them, they become accessories. Raymond whistled low. That's brutal. They were going to destroy my life, claim I was incompetent, leave me with nothing. Brutal is what they deserve. Nathan stood, energy coursing through him. They think I'm a broken old man. They're about to learn they picked the wrong mark. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Marcos, this time with a photo. Him and Geneva at JFK, boarding passes in hand, huge smiles. On our way to paradise. Can't wait to start our life together. Nathan typed back, so proud of you, son. We'll talk when you're back about that power of attorney. I think you're right. It's time. The reply was instant. Thanks, Dad. You won't regret this. Nathan showed the text to Raymond. Won't I? Not if we do this right. Raymond clinked his glass against Nathan's. So where do we start? We start, Nathan said, by finding out exactly who Geneva Mejia really is. Because I guarantee that's not her real name. By evening, Nathan had a plan. Not complete. That would take the full 2 weeks, but the framework was there. He would become the victim they expected. Confused, generous, trusting. He would sign papers, transfer money, play the fool. And while they thought they were winning, he'd be building their prison. Michael Jennings stopped by at 8 p.m., off the clock but clearly concerned. Mr. Irwin, I've been thinking about this all day. Are you okay? Nathan gestured for him to sit. Michael, you did me an enormous favor showing me that footage. I won't forget it. I couldn't let it happen. My uncle, after his daughter scammed him, he was never the same. Died 2 years later, broke and broken. Michael's voice was thick. If I could help you avoid that. You did more than help. You gave me a chance to fight back. Nathan studied the young man. How long have you worked here? 3 years. Started as a bellhop, worked my way to front desk. And after this, what are your plans? Michael shrugged. Maybe hotel management school eventually. Why? Because I might need someone I can trust. Someone observant, loyal, and smart enough to keep secrets. Nathan pulled out his business card. When this is over, call me. I'll have a position for you. Better pay, better prospects. Michael's eyes widened. Mr. Irwin, I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep that footage safe. And if anyone, especially Marcos, asks about my visit to the security office, you'll tell them I was just looking for my wallet. You have my word. After Michael left, Nathan sat alone in his suite. The same room where just hours ago, his son had plotted against him. He felt Andrea's absence like a physical wound. She would have been devastated. Or would she? He remembered the last thing she'd said before the cancer took her. They'd been alone in the hospital room, her hand in his. Protect Marcos, she'd whispered. But don't let him become weak. Don't let guilt over losing me make you give him everything without earning it. At the time, Nathan had promised. But after she died, the grief had made him forget. Every time Marcos called asking for money, Nathan had sent it. Every failed business venture, every unpaid debt. Nathan had covered all, desperate to keep his last connection to Andrea alive. He'd made Marcos weak. He'd taught him that money came without effort, that dad would always fix everything. And somehow, that weakness had twisted into something malignant. Or maybe Marcos had always been this way, and Nathan had been too blinded by love to see it. His phone rang. Raymond. The investigator found something. Geneva Mejia? Real name, Geneva Pritchard. She's got a record. Fraud, identity theft, served 2 years in Nevada. Released 4 years ago. Nathan's grip tightened on the phone. And Leslie? Leslie O'Connell is actually Geneva's sister, Leslie Pritchard. Also did time for forgery. They've been running cons on wealthy men for 6 years. You're their biggest score yet. How did Marcos meet her? Best we can tell, she targeted him. Found out about his wealthy father. Approached him at an acting class in Manhattan 18 months ago. They've been planning this since day one. 18 months. Nathan thought back. Marcos had come home for Christmas 2 years ago. Still single, still struggling. Then last Thanksgiving, he brought Geneva. Confident, in love, talking about settling down. It had all been a performance. There's more, Raymond continued. Geneva and Leslie have a third partner. Goes by various names, but his real name is Drew Daly. He's the muscle and the tech expert. If things go wrong, he handles cleanup. And Nate? He's got a record too. Assault, extortion. Is he in Albany? Was. Checked into a motel near the hotel 3 days ago. Left this morning. Nathan processed this. 3 criminals working together. Marcos had gotten in bed with dangerous people. Whether he understood that or not, his son was now complicit in a serious criminal operation. Ray, I need you to do something for me. Name it. Find Drew Daly. Have him followed. I want to know his every move. Because when this falls apart, I need to know if he's coming for me. After hanging up, Nathan stood at the window overlooking the hotel grounds. Below, a new wedding party was setting up for tomorrow's ceremony. Another young couple, another father paying for his child's happiness. Nathan wondered if that father knew his kid, really knew them, or if, like Nathan, he was about to learn that blood meant nothing when money was involved. He pulled out the flash drive Michael had given him, weighing it in his palm. This little piece of plastic contained the truth. His son's betrayal, his own naivety, the end of the family Andrea had died protecting, but also contained power, knowledge, the ability to fight back. Nathan plugged it into his laptop and watched the footage again. This time, he didn't flinch. He studied every detail. Marcos's body language, Geneva's cold efficiency, Leslie's professional examination of his documents. They were good, practiced, confident, but they'd made one critical mistake. They'd underestimated Nathan Irwin, and that mistake would cost them everything. The next morning, Nathan checked out of the Grandview Hotel. His wallet had been returned, though he noticed the cash was light by about $200. A small price for the surveillance footage that would destroy his enemies. Mr. Irwin, Michael said as Nathan settled his bill. I hope you have a safe trip home. Thank you, Michael. For everything. Nathan shook his hand, palming a $1,000 tip. Remember, when this is over, call me. The drive back to the lake house took 2 hours. Nathan spent on the phone, setting pieces into motion. First call, his accountant, Chester Watts. Chester, I need to restructure my holdings. Create several new entities, limited partnerships, shell corporations, offshore accounts. Make them look substantial, but keep the actual assets isolated. Chester, who'd been handling Nathan's finances for 20 years, asked no questions. How substantial are we talking? 40 million on paper. For million in reality. And Chester? This needs to be airtight legally, but look sloppy enough that someone with criminal intent would think they could access it. Understood. When do you need this done? 2 weeks. That's aggressive, Nathan. It's necessary. Second call. His real estate attorney, Eugene Lindsay. Eugene, I need to mortgage 3 of my properties. Maximum leverage, minimum equity retention. And I need the paperwork to look like I'm trying to hide the transactions. Nathan, that's financial suicide. Trust me, Eugene. Just do it. Third call. An old colleague from his early days in construction. Tommy Chambers ran a security firm now, discreet and expensive. Tommy, I need surveillance. Full coverage on my house, my office, my car. And I need a team ready in case things get physical. How physical are we talking? Unknown. But the people I'm dealing with have a history of violence when cornered. Say no more. I'll have a team ready within 48 hours. By the time Nathan pulled into his driveway, the machine was in motion. In 2 weeks, when Marcos and Geneva returned from Bali, they'd find a Nathan Irwin who was confused, forgetful, and eager to hand over control. What they wouldn't find was the truth, that every signature, every transfer, every document they'd manipulate would lead them straight into a carefully constructed legal nightmare. Nathan walked through his empty house. Without Marcos, without even the illusion of Marcos, it felt hollow. He'd lived here alone since Andrea died, but somehow the loneliness had never felt this sharp. In his study, he pulled up the wedding photos on his computer. Marcos in his tuxedo, arm around Geneva, both of them radiating happiness. Nathan's toast, his hand on his son's shoulder. It was all a lie. Every smile, every laugh, every "I love you, Dad." Nathan closed the photos and opened a new file. He titled it Project Retribution. Then he began to write every detail of his plan, every contingency, every way this could go right or catastrophically wrong. Because Nathan Irwin had spent 30 years building his empire. He knew how to plan, how to execute, how to win. And he was about to teach his son the most important lesson he'd never learned. Never underestimate the man who gave you everything. He had 2 weeks to prepare. 2 weeks to build the perfect trap. And when Marcos and Geneva walked into it, they wouldn't just lose their freedom. They'd lose their future, their money, their hope, just like they'd try to take his. Nathan looked at Andrea's photo on his desk. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry I failed him. I'm sorry I made him weak. But I promise you, I won't let him destroy what we built, even if it means destroying him." Outside, the sun set over Mirror Lake, painting the water gold and red. Nathan didn't notice. He was too busy planning the end of his son's world. The war had begun, and Nathan Irwin intended to win. The 2 weeks passed in a blur of paperwork and planning. Nathan transformed himself into the role of confused, declining father. He called Marcos twice during the honeymoon, both times sounding forgetful and disoriented. "Sorry, did I already ask about the flight? My memory's been foggy lately," he'd said, injecting just the right note of worried confusion. On the other end, he could hear the satisfaction in Marcos's voice. "It's okay, Dad. Don't worry about it. We'll talk when I get back." Meanwhile, Chester Watts worked miracles. By day 6, Nathan had 7 shell companies registered across 3 countries. On paper, they held real estate worth $30 million, a tech startup valued at $8 million, and a mining operation showing promising mineral surveys worth $5 million. In reality, the real estate consisted of worthless land in flood zones. The tech startup was a barely functional website. The mining operation had been flagged by the EPA for environmental violations that would cost $20 million to remediate. All of it looked legitimate in a cursory examination. But the moment someone tried to actually access or sell these assets, the legal problems would multiply exponentially. Eugene Lindsay mortgaged Nathan's 3 weakest properties, buildings already scheduled for demolition, leases expiring within months, structures with hidden foundation issues. He pulled $12 million in loans against them, money he immediately moved into offshore accounts that only he could access. On paper, Nathan appeared to be desperately liquefying assets. In reality, he was building a financial minefield. Raymond's investigator, an ex-FBI agent named Wade Dunham, delivered comprehensive reports on all 3 conspirators. Geneva Pritchard, age 32, had been running cons since she was 19. Her first arrest came at 21, posing as a charity worker to scam elderly donors. She'd refined her approach in prison, learning from more experienced fraudsters. After release, she'd partnered with her sister Leslie. Leslie Pritchard, age 36, was the technical brains. She could forge any document, hack moderate security systems, and create false identities that passed basic background checks. Her downfall 4 years ago had come from getting greedy. She tried to forge government bonds and caught federal attention. Drew Daly, age 41, was their enforcer. 6'3", 230 pounds, with a history of assault and intimidation. He'd done 8 years for armed robbery and hadn't gone straight since. His role in the operation: ensure targets didn't go to the police. "Nate," Wade said during their final briefing, These people are professionals. If they think you're onto them, Daly will escalate. We need to be ready for that. Tommy's team is in place, Nathan assured him. Armed security, panic buttons, the works. Good. Because based on Daly's pattern, he doesn't just threaten. He acts. On day 12, Nathan visited his doctor, Omar John, who treated him for years. Nathan, you look stressed, Omar observed. Everything okay? I need you to do something for me. In my medical files, I need notes suggesting cognitive decline, forgetfulness, confusion, poor judgment. Omar frowned. I can't falsify medical records. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to document what I'm about to tell you. Nathan explained everything. The con, the plan, the need for evidence that he'd been compromised. When this goes to court, I need proof that my son was exploiting a vulnerable person. Omar listened, his expression darkening. And you're sure about Marcos? Your own son? Nathan showed him the security footage. 10 minutes later, Omar was writing detailed notes. I'll document this as you're reporting symptoms consistent with stress-induced cognitive impairment. Technically true, given what you're going through. And Nathan? I'm sorry. No father should face this. On day 14, Nathan stood in his study, reviewing his work. Every piece was in place. The shell companies, the mortgage properties, the medical documentation, the security team, the evidence. Tomorrow, Marcos and Geneva would land at JFK. Tomorrow, they'd call with their next move. And tomorrow, Nathan would begin the performance of his life. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcos. Landed. Bali was amazing. Can we come see you tomorrow? Have something important to discuss. Nathan's hand trembled as he typed. Of course, son. Can't wait to see you. Maybe having trouble remembering if I took my medication this morning. Getting old. The response was immediate. Don't worry, Dad. Geneva and I will help you with that. See you tomorrow at 2? Nathan confirmed and set down his phone. Here we go, he whispered to the empty room. The next afternoon, Nathan opened his door to find Marcos and Geneva on his porch, tanned and smiling. Geneva carried a gift bag. Marcos held a photo album. Dad! Marcos hugged him. Nathan returned it, fighting the urge to recoil. This was his son, the boy he'd raised, the man who'd betrayed him. Come in, Nathan said, adding a slight stumble to his step. Sorry, feeling a bit dizzy today. Geneva's eyes sharpened. Have you been taking your Ambien as prescribed? I think so. The bottles all look the same. Nathan led them to the living room, where he'd deliberately left papers scattered, half-drunk coffee cups, an overflowing trash can. The picture of a man losing his grip. Marcos and Geneva exchanged a glance. Dad, maybe we should organize your medications, Marcos suggested. Make it easier for you to keep track. Would you? That would be helpful. Nathan sat heavily. My memory's been so foggy lately. I forgot Raymond's birthday last week. Can you imagine? It happens, Geneva said soothingly. She opened her bag. We brought you something from Bali. A traditional scarf. That's lovely. Thank you. Nathan accepted it, his hands shaking slightly. Not from fear, from rage. But they interpreted it as age. Marcos sat beside him. Dad, we wanted to talk to you about something important. Geneva and I have been discussing our future, and we think it's time I took a more active role in helping you manage things. Manage things? Your businesses, your properties, your finances. Marcos's tone was gentle, patronizing. You've worked so hard for so long. You deserve to rest. Let someone younger handle the stress. Nathan let confusion cross his face. But I'm only 62. I'm not ready to retire. Of course not, Dad. Not retire. Just delegate. Marcos pulled out papers from his briefcase. I had some documents drawn up. A power of attorney, some trust amendments. It would let me help you while you're still in charge. Nathan took the papers with trembling hands. They were exactly what the security footage had predicted. Documents that would give Marcos control of his accounts, his properties, his entire empire. I don't know, son. This seems like a lot. Dad, Marcos's voice took on a harder edge. Your doctor called me yesterday. He's concerned about you. The forgetfulness, the confusion. He thinks you shouldn't be making major financial decisions alone anymore. Nathan felt a flash of fury. They'd contacted Omar, but Omar would have played along, confirming Nathan's symptoms. Dr. John said that. He's worried. We all are. Geneva touched Nathan's arm. We just want to help. Nathan let the silence stretch, watching them squirm. Finally, can I think about it? Maybe have my lawyer review these. Marcos's jaw tightened. Of course. But Dad, the lawyer will tell you the same thing. This is for your own good. After they left, Nathan allowed himself a cold smile. They played it exactly as predicted. Now came the hard part, convincing them he was signing away his empire while actually signing away theirs. He called Chester Watts. They took the bait. Now we move to phase 2. The dummy accounts are ready. The moment they try to transfer funds, the trail will lead straight to those flag companies. In Eugene, he's prepared the revised power of attorney. It looks identical to theirs, but every clause has a built-in kill switch. The second we prove fraud, everything reverts and they become personally liable for any losses. Perfect. Nathan hung up and looked at the papers Marcos had left. His son's handwriting on the sticky note. Dad, please trust me. Trust. The word tasted like ashes. 3 days later, Nathan called Marcos. Son, I've thought about it. You're right. I need help. Let's sign those papers. The eagerness in Marcos's voice was sickening. That's great, Dad. How about tomorrow? I'll bring my notary. Actually, I prefer we use my lawyer's notary. You know Eugene Lindsay. He's handled my affairs for years. A pause. Sure, Dad. Whatever makes you comfortable. The signing took place in Eugene's office. Nathan played his role perfectly. Hesitant, confused, needing multiple explanations. Eugene, in on the plan, patiently walked through each document while subtly swapping Marcos's version for the modified one. When Nathan finally signed, his hand shook. Not from confusion, from the sheer satisfaction of watching Marcos think he'd won. There, Nathan said. Done. You'll take care of everything now. Marcos gripped his shoulder. I will, Dad. I promise. Liar, Nathan thought. But he smiled. I know you will, son. That night, Marcos and Geneva celebrated in their Brooklyn brownstone, the one Nathan had bought them. We did it, Geneva said, pouring champagne. Full power of attorney. The accounts are ours. Marcos pulled up his laptop, accessing what he thought were Nathan's bank accounts. Look at this. 43 million, right there. And these new holdings, the Cayman Properties, the Singapore tech firm. He's been busier than we thought. Leslie video called in from her apartment. I'm ready to start the transfers. Give me 48 hours and I'll have 20 million moved to our offshore accounts. Wait, Marcos said. Let's be smart about this. Start small, $1 million or $2 million. Test the waters. If he notices, we'll say it was a mistake, a clerical error. He won't notice, Geneva assured him. Did you see him today? He could barely follow the conversation. But Marcos was cautious. Still, small moves first. Across town, Nathan watched his monitors as Leslie's first transfer attempt triggered. Chester had rigged the accounts beautifully. They appeared accessible, but every transaction was flagged and copied to a secure server. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit was receiving alerts in real time. They're starting, Nathan told Raymond, who sat beside him. Just like we predicted. How long before they realize? Depends on how greedy they get. If they're smart, they'll notice the anomalies in a week. If they're greedy, Nathan shrugged. Could be days. It took 4 days. Leslie called Marcos in a panic. The Singapore account, it's not a tech startup. It's a shell company flagged for investigation by 3 different governments. And the Cayman Properties? They're underwater. Literally. Built in a flood zone that's been evacuated. Marcos went pale. What? Your father's assets are fake. Or worse, they're toxic. We can't touch them without triggering criminal investigations. Geneva grabbed the phone. That's impossible. We verified his holdings. You verified paperwork. I'm looking at the actual assets now. The mining operation in Montana? Environmental disaster. The real estate portfolio? Half of it is mortgaged beyond value. Someone has been systematically destroying his empire while making it look intact. Marcos's hand shook, but he signed over control. We have power of attorney. Power of attorney over a financial graveyard, Leslie snapped. And here's the fun part. Some of these companies, they're being investigated for money laundering. If we're on record as controlling them. The implication hung in the air. We're accessories, Geneva finished. He set us up, but he doesn't know we were planning to rob him, Marcos argued. This has to be a coincidence. Wake up, Leslie shouted. This is too perfect to be coincidence. Someone knows, and they're smart enough to let us hang ourselves. Marcos ended the call and looked at Geneva. What if Dad knows? How could he? We were careful. The hotel, the security cameras. Marcos's paranoia grew. What if someone saw us? Then why would he sign the power of attorney? To trap us. Marcos stood pacing. We need to talk to Daly. Drew Daly met them at a diner in Queens. His massive frame intimidated the other patrons into leaving them alone. What's the problem? He asked, his voice a rumble. Marcos explained the situation. Daly listened, expression unreadable. So your Mark might have outsmarted you, Daly summarized. And you want me to do what? Exactly. Find out if he knows. And if he does. Geneva trailed off. If he does, what? Convince him to keep quiet. Daly's smile was unpleasant. That's extra. A lot extra. We'll pay, Marcos said desperately. From what account? You just said they're all poisoned. Daly leaned back. Here's my advice. Cut your losses. Disappear. I could set you up in Mexico for 50 grand. We don't have 50 grand. Then you have a problem. Daly stood. And I'm not interested in being part of it. Good luck. After he left, Marcos put his head in his hands. What have we done? We can still fix this, Geneva insisted. We'll go to Nathan, explain it was a misunderstanding, give back the power of attorney. He'll never know we were planning anything. But Marcos knew better. If his father had set this up intentionally, then he knew everything. And if he knew everything, we're already dead, Marcos whispered. We just don't know it yet. Nathan received the update from Wade Dunham with satisfaction. They met with Daly. He refused to help. They're panicking. Good. Let them sweat a few more days. Nathan reviewed his final preparations. The FBI had been briefed. The evidence was compiled. Now he just needed them to make one more mistake. It came 2 days later. Marcos showed up at the lake house unannounced, alone. Nathan, warned by his security team, met him at the door. Son, what a surprise. Marcos looked haggard. Dad, we need to talk. About the power of attorney. Of course. Come in. Nathan led him to the study, where recording equipment was hidden in every corner. What about it? I think there might have been some mistakes in those accounts. Some of the holdings aren't quite what they seemed. Nathan feigned confusion. Mistakes? What kind of mistakes? The Singapore company, the Cayman properties. They're not as valuable as we thought. Oh, Nathan let worry cross his face. But those were major assets. Are you saying I've lost money? Not lost, just reassessed. Marcos was sweating. Dad, I think maybe I'm not ready to handle this. Maybe we should reverse the power of attorney. But you said I needed help. That the doctor was worried. I was wrong. You seem fine. Sharp as ever. Nathan let the silence stretch, watching his son squirm. Then, softly, Marcos, did you ever actually plan to help me? Or was this always about taking my money? Marcos went white. What? Dad, no, I would never. The Grandview Hotel has very good security cameras. The color drained from Marcos's face. You knew. I've known since the wedding night. I watched you in Geneva and Leslie plan to rob me, drug me, declare me incompetent. Nathan's voice was ice. I watched my son, my only child, plot to destroy me. Marcos backed toward the door. Dad, please let me explain. Explain what? That you never loved me? That everything since your mother died was a lie? That you let a con artist turn you into a criminal? Nathan stood. You want to explain how you disgraced Andrea's memory by using her death to manipulate me? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Marcos was crying now. Geneva, she convinced me I didn't want to, but the money I needed. You needed nothing. You wanted everything. There's a difference. Nathan pulled out his phone. I gave you every opportunity to be a good man. Instead, you chose to be this. He pressed a button. Outside, sirens wailed. Marcos ran to the window. Police cars poured into the driveway. What did you do? He whispered. I did what I should have done years ago. I held you accountable. Nathan opened the door as FBI agents entered. Marcos Irwin, these agents would like to speak with you about conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and attempted extortion. As they read Marcos's rights, he turned to Nathan. Dad, please. I'm your son. Nathan looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. No, he said quietly. My son died with Andrea. You're just a man who wore his face. They took Marcos away. Nathan watched the cars disappear down the drive, feeling nothing. No triumph. No satisfaction. Just a hollow emptiness where his son used to be. Raymond appeared at his elbow. Nate, the FBI also picked up Geneva, Leslie, and Daly. It's over. Is it? Nathan walked back into his study, looking at the photos of Marcos as a child. Smiling, innocent, full of potential. Or is it just beginning? The trial took 6 months. The evidence was overwhelming. The security footage, the financial records, Geneva's and Leslie's prior convictions, Daly's history of violence. The prosecution painted a picture of a sophisticated con targeting a vulnerable widower. Marcos tried to play the victim. He'd been manipulated by Geneva. He never intended to go through with it. He was just confused and scared. But the footage from his own voice damned him. He's desperate for my approval. Has been since Mom died. The guilt makes him pathetic. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Geneva Pritchard, guilty on all counts. 15 years. Leslie Pritchard, guilty on all counts. 12 years. Drew Daly, guilty on conspiracy and assault charges related to previous intimidation. 10 years. Marcos Irwin, guilty on all counts. 20 years. Nathan sat in the courtroom as they read the verdicts. Marcos turned to look at him, tears streaming down his face, mouthing, I'm sorry. Nathan stood and walked out without acknowledging him. Outside, reporters swarmed. Nathan read a prepared statement. Today, justice was served. These criminals targeted me because they thought grief made me weak. They were wrong. To any family facing similar betrayal, I urge you, don't let love blind you to evil, even when it wears a familiar face. He didn't mention Marcos by name. His son had ceased to exist. The aftermath stretched across the next year. Nathan restructured his holdings legitimately, donating $10 million to fraud victim advocacy groups. He hired Michael Jennings as his new director of operations. The young man had earned his loyalty. The lake house felt different now. Quieter. The ghosts of what might have been seemed to haunt every room. Nathan considered selling it, but something held him back. One evening, Raymond found him on the porch, staring at the lake. You did the right thing, Raymond said. Did I? Or did I just teach my son that love has a price tag? You gave him everything, Nate. He chose to throw it away. Nathan sipped his whiskey. I keep thinking about Andrea. How she'd feel about all this. She'd feel proud. You protected yourself. You refused to be a victim. I destroyed our son. He destroyed himself. Raymond sat beside him. You just refused to go down with him. They sat in silence as the sun set. After a while, Raymond spoke again. What now? Nathan thought about it. The businesses would continue. The money would sit in banks. But the purpose, building something for Marcos, was gone. Now, Nathan said slowly, I figure out how to live with what I've done. And maybe, eventually, how to forgive myself for loving someone who never existed. He existed once. The boy in those photos. That was real. Was it? Or was that just what I wanted to see? Nathan shook his head. I'll never know. And that might be the worst part. Raymond left eventually. Nathan stayed on the porch as stars emerged. Somewhere in a federal prison, Marcos was learning what it meant to face consequences. Somewhere, Geneva and Leslie and Daly were doing the same. And here, by the lake where Andrea had once laughed and Marcos had once played, Nathan Irwin sat alone with his victory. It tasted like ashes, but it was his victory nonetheless. He'd protected himself, preserved his empire, and ensured that those who tried to destroy him paid the price. The war was won. Now he just had to figure out how to live with the peace. Nathan raised his glass to the empty sky. Andrea, he whispered, I hope I made you proud. I hope, wherever you are, you understand why I had to do this. The lake gave no answer, but in the silence, Nathan found a strange, cold comfort. He'd survived. He'd fought back. He'd won. And tomorrow, He'd wake up and do it all again. Not because he wanted to, but because winners don't quit, even when winning costs them everything. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.